This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruchim Habayim, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Vayeitzey, the Ben Ashri, the tzaddik of Ranana on Parshas Vayeitzey. This week I'd like to share with you 7 incredible offerings of the Ben Ashri on Parshas Vayeitzey. Let's begin with the question of the Chassam Sofer. The Gemara in Chulin tells us that Yaakov Avinu passed by the Makam HaMikdash, and he says, how could it be the place that my forefathers davened and I didn't daven? So Chassam Sofer wants to know, Mei kara mai savar ulvasoif ma savar. Why at first did Yaakov Avinu in fact not daven, and then ultimately he decided, that he would daven? What changed? So the Ben Ashri quotes a fantastic medrash from the Sefer Balei Bris Avram, of the great-grandfather of the Chida, the Chesed Avram, had the chus to be at his kever in Hebron. And he brings that when Yaakov Avinu left Beersheva, and Eliphaz ran after him to kill him, but because Eliphaz grew up in the house of Yitzchak, he had some understanding of Gadlus and Kedusha, and therefore he didn't want to kill Yaakov Avinu. So Yaakov says, look, you know what you could do to fulfill your father's command? Take away all my possessions, even my clothing. I'll be considered a poor person. And ani chashiv kimes. Now, Yaakov Avinu gave Eliphaz all of his clothing, but he had to run away, and he didn't have clothing to wear. So Yaakov Avinu, this medrash brings, he went into a river. At that time, a horseman went down into the river to bathe, and he tied his horse to a tree, and he drowned. Yaakov Avinu comes out of the river, takes the horseman's clothing and horse, and he runs for his life so that nobody should suspect that he killed this horseman. So the reason why he had to run away and he couldn't go to the Har Habayis is because he was afraid not only of Esav, but he was afraid they would kill him because of the horseman that died. So there's no question, says the Ben Ashri, why he didn't stay in the Har Habayis. He couldn't. His life was in danger. So he left Beersheva, and all of these tzaras happened, and he couldn't daven b'makom shespalu avosav. However, when he finished learning in the Beis Ever, so he went to Haran, because the Beis Ever was close to Haran. As he gets to Haran and he senses the great tumah that is in Haran, he realizes that he needs to daven in order to protect himself, like Chazal say, Lo'olam yaktim tefila letzara, and then and only then he returns to the Makam HaMikdash. But originally he didn't go there because his life was in danger and he had to get out of there as quickly as possible. That is offering number 1. Offering number 2. Vayifka ba'makoim vayolan sham kiva hashemesh. Chazal bring in the medrash that Yaakov Avinu heard the Malachi Asheres cry out, Ba hashemesh, asa shimsha. The sun set, the sun came. So the Mefarshim say, what exactly was the medrash bothered by, and what's the answer, and why did Yaakov Avinu need to hear all of this? So the Ben Ashri has an incredible take on what actually occurred with Yaakov Avinu, that he was Masakein Tfilas Marev. Why dafka now was Yaakov Masakein Tfilas Marev? Did you ever wonder about that? Why specifically at this juncture in time was Yaakov Masakein Tfilas Marev? And the Ben Ashri says a very interesting pshat. He says, we know that the sun set very early for Yaakov Avinu. So if the sun set early and the Shkia came quickly, so he missed Mincha. Yaakov Avinu missed Mincha. It wasn't his fault because the sun set suddenly, but he wasn't able to daven Mincha. That's what it means. Vayifka ba'makom. He was poigeya in the kavod of the Shechina, but it was an oinus. It was extenuating circumstances. Now, what should a person do if they miss a tefillah? They daven the next tefillah twice. So Yaakov Avinu is going to have to daven the next tefillah. The next tefillah would be Shachris. Yaakov Avinu could not take that he'd have to wait the whole night to daven 2 tefillos Shachris. Therefore, it entered his mind that he should be masakin a tefillas Marev. But Yaakov was concerned that if he's going to be Masakin Marav, who says Rebbe Shalom wants him to be Masakin another tefillah? Maybe now, not only will he have been Mevato Mincha, but maybe his tefillah will be a Bracha Levatala. So therefore the Malachim came and they announced, no, the sun set, the sun is coming. And that was sort of a signal to Yaakov Avinu that Hashem, in fact, was pleased with his decision to Masakin Tfilas Marav. Offering number 3. Yaakov Avinu took from the stones of the place and he put it by his head. Rashi says, why? He was afraid of Chayos Ra'os. Says the Ben Lashri, a tzaddik like Yaakov Avinu is afraid of wild animals? This, in fact, is a question of the Ksav Sofer. Was Yaakov Avinu afraid of wild animals? But he says, when a person dreams, a person only dreams what he thinks about during the day. Now, in his dream, he saw the angels going up and down. Chazal say that he saw the 4 Golusim that were destined to be Meshabed Klal Yisrael. Now, the 4 Golios, the 4 nations of the world, are Meshulam, they're compared to Chayos Ra'os. Why did Yaakov dream about Chayos Ra'os? Because in his waking hours, he was afraid of Chayos Ra'os. The Chayos Ra'os were not wild animals, they were the Golusim that Klal Yisrael would ultimately have to endure. Offering number 4, this is an amazing approach. On the pasuk, Vayishka b'makom ahu, he slept in that place. But the 14 years in Shem ve'ever, he did not sleep at night because he was oisek b'Torah. The Ben La'ashri quotes Rabbi Chil Michal of Oistrovtz, the Oistrovtzer, on the pasuk Yoishev Oyhalim, that Rashi says Yaakov Avinu learned in the yeshiva Shel Shem, in the Oyel of Shem and the Oyel of Ever. So he asks, Yaakov Avinu already learned many years, so why is he going back there? He already spent his whole life in Oyel Shem, Oyel Ever. So why is Rashi saying that Yudalet Shana Sheshimesh Beveis Ever Loi Shachav Belayla? Why did he spend those 14 years? He already spent his whole life there in the Oyel Shel Shem, in the Oyel Shel Ever. So the Ben Lashri says an incredible thing. Here Rashi says that he didn't sleep in the base Ever. Earlier Rashi says the Yoshev Oyhalim, the Oyel of Shem, and the Oyel of Ever. The real yeshiva of Shem ve'ever was his house, which was in Chutz Haaretz, the house of Ever, Kedechsiv, be'ever hanahar Yashua Avisechem. But there was a branch, like all good yeshivas, it had a branch in Eretz Yisrael, where there were Talmidim and Menahalim that followed the derech of the yeshiva of Shem and the yeshiva of Ever. Now, Yaakov Avinu, when he went to Haran, he stopped off not in the Oyel of Shem, in the branch, but in the bias of Eber, the mothership yeshiva. And there he loved the yeshiva so much that he couldn't sleep at night, because it was the real thing. Nothing like the real thing, says the Ben La'ashri. Let's move on to offering number 5. Vihine Hashem Nitzav Alav. Rashi says to guard him. What's bothering Rashi? Maybe the Rebbe Shalom is speaking to him. Why does Rashi say to guard him? Says Ben Lashur, what Rashi is bothered by is this was the very first nevuah of Yaakov Avinu. We hold that the first nevuah of a navi cannot be shoira only in Eretz Yisrael and not in Chutz Haaretz. But here it was Chutz Haaretz, as Rashi says, the Malachei Chutz Haaretz came down to escort him. So how could it be that Yaakov Avinu was having real nevuah? The answer is, it wasn't actual nevuah at first, it was only l'shamrai. God came to guard him. But once he came to, in a revelation, to guard him, now he's already huchshar to receive full-fledged nevuah. So the l'shamrai was to get Yaakov Avinu in the door. Offering number 6. Says the Ben La'ashri, the gematria of Beis El and Luz is Tehillim im HaKoilel. This is a remez to the idea that Chazal say that Yaakov Avinu would say Tehillim when he was the shepherd of Lavan's sheep. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite Divrei Torah of the Ben La'ashri. Vayishak Yaakov LeRachel. You know what that means? He kissed Rachel? After all, is that appropriate? Yaakov Avinu, his first encounter, Vayishak Yaakov. The answer is, what he did was like the Sfardim do by the Sefer Torah. He pointed and he gave a kiss to his hand. Like the minhag of Sfardim, when they say V'zois HaTorah, they point and they kiss the hand. Not like the Ashkenazim, says the Ben La'ashri. They kiss the Sefer Torah, and you have some shoitim. They think the more you kiss, the better, until they expectorate all the mucus and phlegm onto the mantle of Sefer Torah that nobody could go near it. It's so contaminated. No, like the Sfardim, that they merely point and then they kiss their finger. This would answer, says the Ben La'ashri. Later on in Bereshit it says, Vayishak lohem vayichabek lohem. The Archaim HaKadosh says, it should say, Vayenashkem vayichabkem. No! The sheet of Yaakov Avinu is you don't have to kiss people mamish. You could just do it lohem, point to them, and hug them in sort of emotion. Now we understand why Yosef perhaps did not follow Yaakov's advice originally to put Menashe before Ephraim, but instead he put Ephraim first, because Yosef held like Yitzchak. Yitzchak said, Geshana ushakali bani. Yitzchak held you have to actually kiss directly. And that was the sheet of Yosef. So Yosef figured first he'll let Yaakov kiss Ephraim actually, and then Menashe, and then he'll position them the way Yaakov Avinu wanted. Ephraim first, because Ephraim was his student, but then he would position them the way Yaakov Avinu wanted. So it seems like the personal shita of Yaakov Avinu was that one could kiss Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel merely with emotion, like the Sfardim point to the Sefer Torah by V'zois HaTorah, and then they kiss their hand. That is quite a novel interpretation of Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel. Okay, these are 7 incredible offerings of the Tzaddik of Ranana, who promises anyone who says over his Divrei Torah in his name, he will pray for you and bail you out of any trouble in this world, in the world to come. I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos, Parshas Vayeitzey, Haba Alinu L'Tova.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.